Thank you, and a very warm welcome to you, Ashish. We have chosen a Saturday so that you don't have the problem of monitoring the markets as you always do. Let's start off quickly by understanding from you. These are very, very interesting and turbulent times in the markets. National Stock Exchange, I mean, you have been there, done that. You started off with National Stock Exchange, went and built BSE into a fabulous, technically savvy exchange, and now you have come to National Stock Exchange. You've sort of you had come at a time when there was some turbulence there as well, and now it's back to steadying the ship completely, and it's really one of the largest public markets in the world, actually. In terms of transactions, it is the largest. Am I right? It's the largest in terms of number of transactions in the world. So you're heading that, and yet we are in the middle of very turbulent times, thanks to a gentleman sitting in the United States. How do you see this from the point of view of somebody who's running the country's largest market?
In a way, for me, if you go through the history of why such an individual gets elected or how and why they do what they do, is because of the way the society, the world has sort of passed by. Around after World War II, the World War II was actually amongst European powers. And the winner was not European, it was American, right? So in a way, the America's journey upwards started from World War II onwards. And they were basically on the upsurge. The World Trade Organization came much later, but the Bretton Woods systems of World Bank, IMF, then United Nations, all were created, and they were actually running on the largest of US. It was saying that I am the king, but you can make me do what you want. So they were saying, finally I will have a veto. And that's how the Europe and everyone else was moving around. And then they were also fighting other people's wars. They were also fighting their whimsical wars. It's not that today, what you see did not happen in US. US has a tendency to be whimsical. They have removed many governments in Panama and Brazil and Argentina on whims. Just a junior CIA clerk would be able to remove many governments. That was the power they had. Of course, with time, what had happened is they have become older society. They have started spending so much over the last 40, 50 years that they don't have that type of money. So now they feel poor. And once they feel poor, they think that I am giving you something, you need to give me back. And that is a surprise to most people, where they were actually, in a way, leeching on the US's largest, and now they are feeling surprised. And this particular society has now lost many things. It was basically three things which they were working on. One was finance, as the sort of financial capital of the world, currencies and stuff like that. The defense and IP. They tried to remove the manufacturing from America, which was polluting, to other countries, and China took it up. And that happened with Europe too. They were also rich, they did not want pollution. So China said gladly, we'll take it up. And today, 40% of the manufacturing is now in China. And so now the middle America, not the middle class, but one which is not on East Coast or West Coast, has no job and is living on that government dole, which is the social security for last 30, 40 years, because all jobs have gone. And now those guys are frustrated because there is no more social security money coming, because there is nothing to pay. And that's where what you get, Donald Trump, is basically an outcome. It could have been a different person. It could have been a nicer person, but outcome would have been similar because the situation is similar. And that's where, for me, the US's hegemony is now slowly going to go down. Their upsurge is broadly done. And then other countries are going to come up. And today, post-1988, after Berlin Wall fell, US was the only, unipolar power in the world, single power in the world. And today, now you have four different groups, which is EU, US, China, and India. This basically multipolarity is also being a threat. They're trying to figure out that I need to protect my dollar, so don't set up BRICS. I need to do this, so don't. Those are the threats which they can give. But the threats are required only in small measures. When you try to use your power, you figure out the limitations of your power. I think he's figuring that out
yes.
slowly, right?
But you know, from an investor's point of view, and we've had several new investors who have come into the markets, particularly post-COVID, during and post-COVID. They've not seen such turbulence and such geopolitical turmoil in probably ever before. How does a first-time investor then navigate such turbulence?
In a way, everyone has to, again, learn in their own way. Most of the time, when you are coming into middle class, see, when Mr. Modi took over in 2014, I recall the statistics, India had around 1.67 lakh crore unique investors. And the market capitalization was around 67 lakh crore. Today, there are 11.8 crore unique investors, almost 12 crore, which is 7 to 8 times more. And the market capitalization has also gone to almost 450 lakh crore, which is again 7 to 8 times. So you have seen tremendous amount of jump in last 11 years due to the rapid growth, the middle class framework which India is getting into. Almost 20% of Indian households are now investing through NSE. They have to naturally have some house, they need to have some bank balance, they need to have insurance, and then they come into the stock market. So effectively, India is becoming rapidly middle class. 20% Indians have invested through NSE into stock markets. That tells you that India is literally 20% households are middle class. Now, many of them have seen a very tough time of COVID, where the markets went down by 40%. Suddenly. And then when the COVID progressed, we realized that it's not going to be as bad as what was being made out by the Indian exports imported from America. Whenever something new happens, we have the migratory birds who had gone from here, then come back and try to teach us. But India has changed, the world has changed, and what they don't get counted there, but we count them here because at least it's a proxy for the white skin which we still love. And that's where, for me, broadly speaking, COVID was the last 100 years, the worst period humankind had, right? And still, India did exceedingly well. And for me, that's why current situation is not that difficult to pass by. And naturally, everyone else in the game will also understand their side of the weaknesses. They will come back on table, try to do something next and stuff like that. So for me, I always look at it from the market side on various aspects, saying there is known. You know what the other guy is going to do, what is going to happen. That is known. And then there are known unknowns. That is, you know what you don't know. These are the 15 things that are going to change, or we don't know what will happen. And then there are unknown unknowns, right? And that unknown was that COVID first month. After that, it became known unknown. That okay. And similarly, Trump's first month was the unknown unknown, and now it's becoming known unknown, where you know that tomorrow morning he may wake up and do something else. And he's in a search of deals, right? He's basically a compulsive deal-making person, right? He has to say that your property is bad and my property is good, you are dead, I am not. And it's a way to speak, right? It's a trash talk, which many businessmen do to pep themselves up also. But broadly speaking, he's trying to ask for more in the bargain than what he wants to give. And that may not work with everyone, but we need to still see how finally the things take shape. And after 4 years, what happens, right? Because for me, today, US has not seen the inflation that comes with the tariff. This kind of tariffs, the first 3 months of his tenure this time, first 3-4 months, have actually been the post-inventory, which was built up earlier in the anticipation of this tariff, has been now sold. Now this quarter onwards, you are going to get hit by the new inflation. When inflation comes, you are going to be in a situation where you can't reduce the interest rates. Now he has to also fund around $7 trillion of rollover of debt. They have $35 trillion of debt, right? And then $1.9 trillion of deficit this year. So almost $10 trillion or $8 to $9 trillion of debt they need to raise from the markets, for which they have to reduce the interest rate, which means they have to slow down the economy. But if you slow down the economy and think, once I roll over, I will switch it on and it will become super performing, it doesn't work that way. Economy is not like a machine when you switch on and off. So there are many things he has not yet faced. These are early days, honeymoon for his own constituency, because there is a personal side to his way of dealing. there is a constituency side. He has to appeal to his constituents, which have voted for him, who are very aggressive. And then about country. Country is probably very little, but the other things you need to, I mean, he needs to satisfy, you need to satisfy and stuff like that.
But in this scenario, you have been very vocal and bullish about the India growth story ever since we have spoken multiple times about this. And even today, India is the fastest growing major economy. IMF has just increased its growth prospects for India as well. What is your sense, despite these global headwinds? You seem to suggest that this is a passing phase, and the India growth story is not really, going to be hit in any way.
See, I always maintain that geopolitics eats economics for breakfast. But then the demographics is the long-term trend, right? The demographics is the most important trend, which we have not even discussed. And it's like a slow-moving train wreck, if you say so, right? Because suddenly, I mean, if you look at around the world, Japan is old for long. China has suddenly become old. Europe is old. It's almost like a museum, right? And America is old. And America, Europe, and Japan have severe social security issues, medical cost issues, and other things. Those societies are not going to generate more demand. China is not going to generate more demand. Which societies are going to create demand are young. And that's where India is into that demographics. But then overlaying that, the technology trend is even longer, 10,000 years, 20,000 years. The societies which have adapted to technologies actually end up coming up. And we were not in the technology race for last 1,000 years. We were the pioneers of technology, of weaving, metallurgy, conceptual technology like decimal systems and all. But then 1,000 years we were managing our internal hierarchy, and we got left behind. And now when the technology race is being run on AI, or biotech, or anything, drones, we are at the forefront, right? So for me, given this two potent combination, which are long-term, demographics and technology, today India is the best country because we have next to, our neighbors in Bangladesh and Pakistan, both are young, but they want to go back to societies which were 1400 years back, right? So there, you don't have the technology sort of layover, and that's where for me, India, which is in a way, very technology savvy. It's going to kind of, with its demographics, it's going to be the largest economy in next 20, 30, 50 years, which will create more wealth and also have more demand because you may have more technology, but nobody to actually consume. And that's where, for me, I have completely fascinated over last 30 years when you look back at like 30, 35 years, how India has taken off. Yes. To a large extent, these are the two reasons. And India has not become old. In fact, India is still going to be young for next 30, 40, 50 years. And that's where India should become rich before it becomes old.
Ashish, we have several, startup founders also in this audience. And, we have been seeing a lot of companies, startups, going from the private markets, the valuations, crazy valuations have, of course, mellowed down, and now going to the public markets. What is your sense of how the startup ecosystem is faring in terms of the public markets? Because the IPO market may be booming, but when they actually access the markets, the performance is not that fantastic, right?
In a way, the private markets are always like this, right? It's a make-believe world that two of us tell that this company is valued so much, and then we pass it on to our third friend who puts in at 10x more price, and both our valuation go up. And then three of us put it on to another gullible friend at 100x, and so it continues. But ultimately, it's a make-believe world, right? When you come to the market, real market, that is the stock market, then that's where thousands and millions of people are going to basically judge the company, and largely we judge the company based on performance and not on promise, largely. Sometimes we also go run after promise, but broadly we go after the performance and not after profit. So if you can't perform and you want to give nice stories, then stay with private markets. If you want to perform, come with profits, come into us. But broadly speaking, the way I look at it is, given the third page of pink papers, I call it third page, like page 3, you tend to believe that all trespassers will be funded. That's not true. Out of 10,000 entrepreneurs, probably 2-3 get funded who are connected somewhere. Otherwise, 9,997 have to go through the grunge work. And for them, we also have a SME market. You can raise even 5 crore, 10 crore, 20 crore. And you can make it large. I mean, I have cases in 2012, the guy raised 2 crores. Today, his company is worth 2,000-3,000 crores, and he's himself worth 1,000 crores, right? So, for me, somewhere in the line, we think startup means somebody who has large guy should have funded, and that's why that brings some sort of prestige to that. For me, in our market, it is the performance and not where you come from and who had funded you before. And that's what you need to remember, that if you want to really have the real prestige, this market takes you off all the vineyards which we carry on ourselves, right? This is pure play, performance-based market, and that's what I love about the market. It's truly democratic. It doesn't matter which caste, creed, language, which school you came from, whether you came from Harvard or you came from Jhumri Talaiya. If you make money for others, we will basically sort of support you. And there are examples like Dhirubhai Ambani. He went to Eden as a petrol pump attendant, right? And he came here, started Reliance Industries in 1977. And he has been a folk hero in my market. There is no even bigger hero there. And there can be many controversies, but he continued to give good performance, good returns to my investors. That's why they appreciate. And that is true with Nandan Nilekani. Nandan Nilekani or Narayan Murthy, they were not from even traditional business background. They were not from that caste. And still they made billions for themselves, but for others, right? So when you come to the public markets, don't think only about yourself. You have a larger family to take care, and they have to be taken care more. After they eat, you need to eat. That's how the promoters have to do whatever they do in public markets.
So we are running out of time, Ashish, but one question we have to ask you since we've got you here. And you've had a stellar listing of NSDL, of course. When is the NSE stock going to be listed? Because you've seen it all. You've been in Bombay Stock Exchange, which is again a listed stock. When is the NSE listing happening? What's the status of that?
No, it's the question which everyone asks me. And truly speaking, I can give you a very long answer. The answer is I don't know. But the no objection certificate, we are a highly regulated entity. We are ourselves regulator, but we are a highly regulated entity. So we need to get a no objection certificate to even prepare our DRHP. Once that comes, it's slightly more mechanical that we prepare our DRHP in 3-4 months. We give it back to SEBI to approve, and then they'll take 3-4 months to scrutinize and give back. So it's around 8-9 months after the NOC comes. So as and when NOC comes, 8-9 months.
But I think the regulator is pretty favorably disposed from our discussions with him.
Absolutely. I mean, aapke muh mein ghee shakkar. Only thing is once the NOC comes, then only it can be there, right?
So wish you very best with the listing as well, as and when it happens. Ashish Chauhan, ladies and gentlemen, the man who's seen it all in the public markets. And thank you for this wonderful conversation.